Thrupters than ever, which are just damn fun units to watch. I hope we get to see a lot of them.
If not in this series, we got him canning later today, so I'm sure we will, ZG. Spawning in this bottom left-hand side in the red, representing Berlin International Gaming, it is ShoWTimE.
In the top right, repping that Mouse, he is the Blue Terran HeRoMaRinE. Hiding that barracks, trying to get into ShoWTimE's head.
I love it. The Macarax making an appearance again here in DreamHack Fall. We saw a lot of this in the group stages. I don't know if you guys saw as much in the A stream, but I feel like the B stream was just littered with little Macaraxes in the naturals, just trying to throw your opponent off. It's such a nice play because it's such a rare scouting pattern for a Protoss player to actually go down south in your natural and find that one. And of course, as soon as the probe sees what they see right now, realizes the barrack not in the main base, there's going to be a small panic in ShoWTimE's brain. Now look, he's a pro. He's not going to freak out too much, but you know, a little bit of concern, and we can already see him queuing that probe up to the north side. But that means the scouting pattern is going to miss this Maca barracks in the natural.
So he knows that it's going to be a one-base build for a little while longer, but he does redirect. That's nicely done. So the difference is like he gets a Zealot if he thinks it's a Reaper that's going to be attacking him, which could interrupt his build, but he probably would have still expanded. Now, with the Scout, I mean, he was already holding off on the Zealot anyways. Apparently he thought, you know, he wouldn't need it, and it's, you know, arguable sometimes you don't, even against the Reaper. He's actually doing this pretty nicely. The setup already fairly nice for ShoWTimE since getting that Scout. It'd be lovely to get a follow-up Scout, see if they're actually going for, like, an expansion after this factory, if it's Hellions or a Cyclone or what have you, but pretty unlikely for that to happen. So ShoWTimE's just going to go, I think, look around for proxy starports, or even proxy something of his own, which would be a bold but enjoyable move.
That would certainly be a bold but enjoyable move from ShoWTimE. I'd love to see a proxied starport. Just throw him for a loop. I don't think that's probably going to happen here, though that probe is being very suspicious in the top corner. But as this is for HeRoMaRinE, we're going to see a natural expansion behind this. And wow, he is a little bit worried about that proxy starport somewhere, isn't he? Dropping the shield battery down in his natural. We see the swap over of the factory onto the reactor, meaning we're going to see double Hellion production. And with the Stargate coming down, ZG, is this Stargate too late for a Hellion drop, or is it still on the right schedule?
I think at one point you swapped for the both races. Yeah, starport.
Oh, did I?
The starport.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, I do that all the time. Stargate and starport drives me nuts. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No worries. Just funny because you did it like with the Stargate being the starport when we were talking about that.
Of course.
They're so close, man. They're so close. The starport, I mean, it could still do a medevac drop just because that doesn't have to hit it necessarily a specific timing. In fact, sometimes having an off timing can make it even more potent because then they're like out of position. But it's obviously not going to be the quickest attack, and it's also going to be pretty prominent in ShoWTimE's mind. The Hellion opener in general has really become popular, and with the Hellion opener, you always got to remember of the proxy or not, but medevac drop with the Hellions. So ShoWTimE should be aware of the possibility. Now he just needs to actually be in position for it. But I actually like the way that ShoWTimE's been handling this kind of odd game so far, as it's not really the oddest game. Getting the scouting first, and then even getting back in there to scout that it was actually a factory and then command center, has put ShoWTimE into a good position. He has all the information, now he just actually needs to execute the defense.
Yeah, it's going to be really tricky. We saw HeRoMaRinE there cutting a couple SCVs, just a few though, to make sure he could get this cloaked Banshee follow-up. Now, unfortunately for HeRoMaRinE, ShoWTimE already has the observer out, second observer on the way, so the cloaked Banshee not going to catch him completely by surprise. That's a huge investment from HeRoMaRinE, and it looks like his initial drop's going to get shut down as well. HeRoMaRiNE's going to be forced to drop at the third base. There's nothing there. Going to try and make it up in the main, the natural, just scouting everywhere, trying to throw his opponent off. Finally, we see him getting in here. First, HeRoMaRiNE is going to get down.
He tried to wall off to make sure that the Hellions wouldn't actually bust through, and he is still going to wall off to make sure that he only has to deal with the HeRoMaRiNEs. Almost, oh my good god. Okay. Actually, a little less than perfect now. It was almost perfect, then it got a little bit worse because he did lose a Stalker, as well as the Observer got hit by that HeRoMaRiNE splash.
That was a really nice dance that both of those players did with each other. HeRoMaRinE trying to sneak in for some more damage, and ShoWTimE like preventing him from doing so and not eating any damage on the back end. That's so difficult to do properly for both players, and they both pulled it off really well. It's one of those weird engagements where I feel like there wasn't a winner or a loser, where both players just did like exactly what they needed to do, and the defense was good, the attack was good, and we're going to see ourselves moving into the mid game. So nicely played by both players here, and I think HeRoMaRinE going to be very disappointed once this Banshee gets pushed away, because he won't have any more damage to be done.
Ooh, a little bit more interesting with the Hellions being dropped out of there as opposed to the Widow Mines. At 3, they one-shot the probes. At 2, it's a little bit more difficult. It's still going to grab 8 probes. That actually was quite nice. It's kind of what HeRoMaRinE needed to feel really confident about this opener. Even before that, it wasn't the worst opener because there was very little fear of being countered with what ShoWTimE was doing, but now it actually feels pretty good for HeRoMaRinE as he's now ahead in workers with his own 3rd CC close to finishing. Barely saves the Banshee as well. ShoWTimE, man, starting to slip a little bit here and there in the defense.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one thing that we all know HeRoMaRinE is unbelievably good at, right? Is if his first aggression doesn't work, there's a second one behind it and a third one behind that, and they're all slightly different and they're all slightly novel. He's such a scary player, and it's really showing now. ShoWTimE, of course, known as the Wall, the Shield of Ire. Who's the Shield of Ire, CG?
Stats.
Stats is the Shield of Ire. ShoWTimE, yeah. another Protoss player with a similar reputation. The Wall, known for not letting anything get past him there, did eat a bit of damage. I like HeRoMaRinE's choice, though, behind this, going for a very standard, looks like 1-1 timing push. Got Stim and combat shields on the way, and adding on barracks number 4 and 5 right now. His infrastructure back home is looking really solid.
Yeah. The only thing that's a little bit scary in this type of position for the Terran player is their lack of production, but that is, as it's getting rounded out. ShoWTimE was not setting up a quick like charge attack or a bunch of Blink Stalkers going across the map, and even if they were, with the the defensive properties of Eternal Empire with a couple of tanks, HeRoMaRinE was setting up for even that possibility. HeRoMaRinE just got a really good start, but ShoWTimE finally with a breather, he went from being down a probe, which with Mule is actually pretty bad, to actually suddenly skyrocketing ahead, where a Protoss player wants to be up 12 workers. Now he needs to utilize his economy to actually get some units, and that's where things maybe are a little bit scary. Grabs the Banshee, no one has to worry about that. Has Stalkers scouting for the push, which he sees with the Observer anyways. As he sees it retreat, he's going to kind of be like, whew, okay, great. I don't have to deal with that, because I think he could deal with it. It's like so much better not to have to.
Oh yeah, definitely. Not something you want to have to deal with. If at all, you can push it away. I'm amazed that one Banshee is still alive, and luckily there's a shield battery in that 3rd base to try and save him. So we'll see if HeRoMaRinE ever moves back in with that one Banshee. But Armory on the way now. I imagine that's just for the +2/+2 upgrades for HeRoMaRinE. And all seems to be sort of evening out here. ShoWTimE grabbing a 4th base. ZG, is HeRoMaRinE going to be able to push on 1-1 here, or do you think he's going to wait for 2-2 now that he's dropped that Armory down?
I think he's going to be able to push pretty much anytime that he really wants to. He doesn't really have to wait for 2-2. This is a TVZ. We kind of be talking more about that alongside maybe some drops. But in this matchup, you're kind of, you have the go time at any point. If you have Medivacs and Stim, then any time is go time. And he's going to try and then hit once again into ShoWTimE's would-be 4th. ShoWTimE's actually taking the high ground, which, is a little bit farther away, but also does still have its own complications on the defense. ShoWTimE's going to reposition. He's got 1-1 done. Storm almost finished. And I do believe he has a Warp Prism, but not using it to be defensive. He's got it actually headed towards the main base, of which there is not much to defend.
And this is great. We saw Geralt try this a couple different times against Marine Lord in the previous series. He was able to make it work on, I think, 1 game. The other 2 games, not so much luck. But this time, HeRoMaRinE way out of position, of course, so he's only able to bring back a small battalion back into the main base. These Zealots ripping and tearing their way apart. A lot of friendly fire splash damage on those SCVs, but here's the big fight down at the south side, CG.
Yeah, HeRoMaRinE not paying attention for the very first second there. It does get a couple of, I guess, 1 storm, injuring a lot of his units, but manages to save most of them. His tanks are a little injured as well, but HeRoMaRinE isn't really able to push into ShoWTimE's 3rd. And while that would be maybe okay, because he did get a cancel in 4th, HeRoMaRinE lost 16 SCVs and might still be cleaned up as ShoWTimE comes in with the Concave with the Storms. No goes to take those out, and is just splits away from this, but with so many of his army being Marines, every Storm really hurts, even on top of the Medivac, so that every single last one goes down. HeRoMaRinE is cleaned up, but the economy actually isn't that bad. Despite losing those SCVs, he's got a faster 4th CC, and he still has enough army to maybe even threaten. The problem is, I think, is the Medivacs. Doesn't have any of those, can't go into any Liberator harassment, that's what's going to keep him back at home for a little while.
I was just about to say, if you check that unit tab, you'll see that he doesn't have a single medevac, or didn't have a single medevac on the field until just a moment ago. Finally working on medevacs number 3 and 4 here, but that's just simply not enough. And of course, newer medevacs mean lower energy medevacs, so you're going to be a little bit restricted on how many times you can stim. Obviously, HeRoMaRinE would love to be like stimming his units across the map to join a fight in a few minutes when he's finally engaging on ShoWTimE's 4th or 5th base. But with this small medevac count, with the low energy, he's not going to be able to do that. That's not just going to slow him down. It's going to make his attack that much less deadly. Luckily, his Ghost Academy's finished up now, and he finally has some ghosts on the way, ZG.
Could have been a lot better if he had actually just boosted those medevacs away from the fight as soon as he realized he wasn't going to win it. And I think he kept them around because he realized he might take a decent trade, and that is what ended up happening. It was like an okay trade, but yeah, maybe saving those medevacs would have been the better call. Well, it starts up 3-3 as ShoWTimE moves over into Colossus. He might have a little delay on his 3-3 because he did not get that 4th up. That was still a gain there from HeRoMaRiNE's push. That 4th base still not done for ShoWTimE, so really missing that extra gas that would propel you into all 3 splash technologies, right? As well as your upgrades. Like, Protoss need those passes. So when that gets up, we'll see a little bit more from ShoWTimE's upgrades. But for now, more about the army. Taking on a medevac drop is a nice start, and ShoWTimE's vision of the map definitely is good enough to have him always in place to defend. It's not the most amazing, but it's certainly good.
Yeah, that's one thing we've seen in the last couple minutes this game is ShoWTimE previously had a couple observers out on the map all the time, had some roving zealots around, had some pylons up just to be sure. And now we see his map vision has been diminished quite a bit, actually. His observers back home now. His warp prism on the north side is the only real access he has into what HeRoMaRiNE is up to. So this is going to give HeRoMaRiNE a lot more freedom to posture around the map and try and drive ShoWTimE back. Now, ShoWTimE can see when he's moving in here the natural, obviously, but nice snipes here from HeRoMaRiNE, really preventing ShoWTimE from getting the map vision he needs and some good initial shots on those Colossi. Luckily, they are both going to stay alive for ShoWTimE.
HeRoMaRiNE was hoping that ShoWTimE was perhaps defending his 4th or even would be 5th base, but actually his army was pretty well in position. I mean, ShoWTimE is missing some information. Towards the left and the right, both the attack avenues are not really being scouted by him right now, so this could be a potential, like, oh, if HeRoMaRiNE's entire army jumps on only half of ShoWTimE's, but it's actually even hard for the Terran to kind of figure out that that is the correct call, right? Because they're also thinking about multitasking and splitting their army. So right now, HeRoMaRiNE has about half. A little bit more than half actually on the ground, and then a lot more supply up in the air, headed towards ShoWTimE's 4th base, trying to maybe even get to the main if he could. That'd be kind of a stretch, but yeah, he's gonna head towards the 4th.
That's one of the reasons that I'm so excited we've got 3 PVZs to cast with ACG. I mean, the amount of skills you need in PVZ, you've got to be good at everything to be able to win. If you drop map control, if you drop army supply, if you drop rotations, if you drop tech, anything, you simply can't win this matchup, and these players really going to be giving it a good run. Nice defenses here so far by ShoWTimE, driving away HeRoMaRiNE from both the bottom 12 o'clock base, his 4th base, and from the natural. Meanwhile, a little zealot run by forcing a pull of all the SCVs at the inside 12 o'clock base of HeRoMaRiNE before that gets cleaned up.
Ah, it was actually a storm drop.
Oh, storm drop, was it?
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, pretty cool. It's always fun when it's a storm drop, right? It's just like a little bit cooler than just a regular old zealot bomb. Whatever. They still got those storms in the warp prism, so he's going to be looking for another type of attack, maybe on HeRoMaRiNE's now 5th base. As they both get to 5th bases, they've really perfected their composition. We even got a Dark Templar transition or addition on the way, but this is a pretty good fight for HeRoMaRiNE, finding ShoWTimE just a little bit caught off guard. Got a good concave, but I think defensively ShoWTimE will be okay. I don't mind that snag. HeRoMaRiNE saw an opportunity, he took it. Didn't win the game, but didn't lose him in the game either, that's for sure. Actually, a bit of a trade.
Yeah, I think HeRoMaRiNE actually did a really nice job there with the disengagement. A lot of times you'll see players that get that flank play, right? And they realize, okay, I've got 180 degrees surround. I'm just going to go. There's no way I can lose this. Oh. Doesn't quite kill the disruptor. That's right. Anyway, I see players will engage with that 180-degree flank, and they're like, okay, I can't lose this. I'm just going to go. HeRoMaRiNE realized that he got the Colossi killed, so the Colossi count all the way down to 0 now. And then he just disengaged. So really, really good identification there by Big Gabe to go ahead and move away. But this little push looks really scary. This planetary fortress is not going to last very long here, CG.
Luckily, it wasn't DT Blink, but I think it's just still too much, even with all SCVs. Maybe all SCVs plus building armor, then it wouldn't have died, but that was just a little bit too much. HeRoMaRiNE was not prepared for that. He tries to engage. That is a very fearsome Protoss army. EMPs do hit some of the units, but he just needs a better arc, and he needs more EMPs, and he is not prepared for the fight, so retreat was the best option. And it's not devastating that he loses his 5th yet either, but if he was to lose his 5th plus also lose the engagement, that's when the snowball really starts.
Yeah, HeRoMaRiNE's done a great job this series, or at least this game, because it's game 1 of the series. But he's done a great job this game of like knowing when to disengage, which is something we saw Marine Lord and Geralt struggle with in the previous series. Like, you know, when do I not want to attack here? Nice EMPs, by the way, blanketing the army of ShoWTimE. He's going to lose all the shields on most of these units here. Luckily, Disruptors from ShoWTimE popped him in the last minute there and will zone HeRoMaRiNE out. But HeRoMaRiNE now healed back up. He's got 8 medevacs out, which is a very healthy medevac count for this number. And he will be able to chase down the army of ShoWTimE if he wants. But look at this, more GTs coming in. Man, this is so scary from HeRoMaRiNE. He's got to keep his army back home to try and defend against this. ShoWTimE's doing a great job of preventing HeRoMaRiNE from pushing across the map like Big Gabe wants to do.
Yeah, HeRoMaRiNE should probably not even really be looking to engage. He can't just simply retreat because then ShoWTimE's going to walk all over him, but I don't think he's actually going to want to take a trade until he's able to get a 5th base back up. At least takes out the Disruptor. They have a bit of a big shot there. HeRoMaRiNE needs like a planetary, or this is going to be even worse. And on top of the planetary, he would also love to have Liberators, 1 apiece on top of the planetary to stop the DT harassment, because Blink is done and it only gets worse from here. Another planetary going down is actually terrible for HeRoMaRiNE, and he might now be a bit desperate to actually get a good fight. But how does he do that against so much flash against Disruptors? One getting a very juicy shot, and that's too juicy, so juicy juice. Disruptors are cool, man. ShoWTimE takes game number 1.
Jeez, we got to post a not safe for Terran warning on this stream, Zombie Grub. Those were filthy Disruptor shots. They, of course, didn't win ShoWTimE the game. He had the game, not necessarily won, but was in a solid position from his economic damage behind that. He's done a nice job zoning HeRoMaRiNE out and keeping him back home, but those Disruptor shots, just the icing on a cake, the cherry on the top of the sundae. I feel a little dirty after that.
That was a pretty good one for the last hit, but I mean, ShoWTimE also had a lot more behind that Disruptor shot, right? So he was not really too worried about losing to the last-ditch attempts to engage. Yeah, unfortunately, in those positions, like HeRoMaRiNE, any Terran players, as much as you can say, okay, maybe if I just kind of like turtle for a little bit, I can get my bases back up, you are then entirely defending. You are always running around to what they can do, because you have to keep your army back at home to deal with DTs with Blink. Just like it's what you have to do unless you already have a planetary with a Liberator on top of it. And as soon as you get into that position, ShoWTimE's army, very mobile army, ShoWTimE's really been one of the, I feel like he's one of the first guys to really utilize like a entirely like Disruptor, Storm, Gateway army and just be like all over the place all the time, very even too aggressive occasionally. I remember seeing it, you know, a year or 2 years ago at this point, being like, yeah, that's the way that PvT is supposed to be played. Anyways, he just takes advantage of HeRoMaRiNE being defensive. So HeRoMaRiNE can't really just turtle and get his bases back up. He has to be out in the map, but if you're out in the map, you're getting hit by Disruptors, you're getting hit by Storm. It was not an ideal situation there for HeRoMaRiNE, who really wants to have everything A-okay back at home and then focusing entirely on every fight he takes.
Yeah, ShoWTimE really showcasing that he was just didn't let HeRoMaRiNE play the kind of game that HeRoMaRiNE really wanted to play there, I think. And this is something that you and Wardy talked about at the beginning, is just how ShoWTimE looks so solid in this matchup. And HeRoMaRiNE's been struggling just a little bit. Well, let's intro our players here for game number 2 on Death Aura LE. Spawning in the top left-hand side in the blue, representing Germany and Mouse Sports, it's HeRoMaRiNE.
In the bottom right for BIG, he is ShoWTimE.
Now, ZG, you're a much more experienced caster than I am. Do you ever get confused because HeRoMaRiNE's nickname is Big Gabe and ShoWTimE plays for Big Esports?
I have never gotten confused because of that.
That throws me off, like, because we can see the team logos on our overlay as well, and that throws me off so often because I see HeRoMaRiNE and I think Big Gabe, but then I see the big next to ShoWTimE and I'm like, wait a minute, they can't both be big. This isn't Tom Hanks. What's going on? It always throws me for a loop.
See, I actually don't have that overlay on. So.
Oh, lucky.
Yep. I know what you mean though. Like when TY had YouTube in front of, like that was his clan for a while.
Oh yeah.
And I did have it on my overlay for some reason. Like it showed YouTube TY. I like wanted to call him YouTube like 3 or 4 times in a cast. Just narrowly avoided doing so. So I know what you mean.
I run into that problem a lot if I cast games like more amateur casual games, like with friends or something, and it's and they have, you know, some sort of clan tag or something. I'll say their clan tag instead of their name, and then I just feel bad the whole time because then I feel like I'm disrespecting them, even though in reality I'm just dumb, CG. It's just hard to do.
Well, yeah. What is the saying? Never it's like if it's never assume it's maliciousness.
Never ascribe to malice what can be explained by
Yeah.
incompetence. Yeah.
Exactly. There you go.
And that goes for all of you back home as well. Well, luckily, these players, neither malicious nor incompetent CG. ShoWTimE checking around for all the proxies. HeRoMaRinE going for a very standard Reaper opening with that factory down. This could not be a more standard PvT so far.
I mean, nowadays it feels like the factory expand is a little bit more standard, right?
Yeah.
But it was a factory before the command center. So ShoWTimE would love to see that again. Again, to get that confirmation. While it's, people would say like, oh, it's HeRoMaRinE. Both of these guys are very macro oriented. Just assume he's not really going to do a lot with a one-based build. You actually can't assume that. HeRoMaRinE has done a couple of different builds, some very, very even tricky kind of questionable builds, and done them very well. So you can't assume that, but it would be an okay assumption. And in this case, it would be actually pretty correct. ShoWTimE added on a faster sentry to make sure to get the hallucination. And I like that. Now, it can backfire if it is actually something in proxy, like if Marauders are about to show up for, because it's like a 2 barracks with like 1 proxy, like, something like that. It could be a problem to have a sentry. But if it's kind of anything else, then that sentry is going to be a-okay. Going to give him a lot of confidence to actually also utilize his Twilight Council instead of, emergency slapping down a robo. I like that addition.
Yeah, we often talk about players sacrificing, one element of gameplay for another. So are they sacrificing their micro for some macro back home? Are they sacrificing map presence for army tech? Are they sacrificing, in this case, army power for map presence and scouting? So ShoWTimE just sort of rolling the dice there and seeing which part of his game he really wants to amp up. And there's no way. Whoa! He's going to go for it. Third base down immediately, scouted by HeRoMaRinE. Now that zombie grub seems quite greedy to me.
It's the confidence gained from the early hallucination scout. Like, even though HeRoMaRinE can utilize a bit faster of a factory to do something, maybe a bit faster, maybe a bit more potent, it's not really going to be usually game-ending type of damage, right? It's still mostly based around harassment, as HeRoMaRinE is also looking towards at least more of a macro game. But you still have to defend against the harassment. Oh my good god. That was close.
My abs are getting a workout from just all the clenching I'm doing today from watching these darn Widow Mines getting down. And oh no, I don't know if ShoWTimE realizes that one's still in his. Surely he hasn't forgotten it's there. No, he hasn't. Thank goodness. The probe does go down. The Widow Mine goes down as well. Only 3 probe kills. Honestly, that could have gone way worse for ShoWTimE. Now, CG, how do you feel about these like hybrid drops we see more Terran players doing these days, where it's not just a Hellion drop, not just a Widow Mine drop, but a Widow Mine and a couple Marines and maybe a Marauder in there? I feel like it gives the Terran players a bit more sustainability on their drops, but is there a downside to not going for like a full 4 Widow Mine drop?
Well, the downside of not going for a full 4 Widow Mine drop is that you have to produce off that factory with the reactor a little while longer, which usually, unless it is part of your plan, you're using it to swap off to like barracks and maybe even your starport. So that's like one of the downsides. And then 4 regular Widow Mines, I would say rarely gets that much better than 2 regular Widow Mines. If we're talking the addition of the armory or the addition of drilling claws, then again, that's different. So, yeah, I mean, the 2 Widow Mine drop is still like the standard, but if you're going to open up with a little bit more pizzazz, like HeRoMaRinE has, then yeah, adding in more Marines there is going to make sense. At one point, like, 5 years ago, Widow Mine drop did almost always come with 4 Marines could fit in the medevac, but people just basically started saying it's not working anymore. Beyond would win a game based off of just those units, sure, occasionally, but
it's unfair to compare anything else, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, jeez. We see Stim and Combat Shields finishing up at about the same time, and only 1 engineering bay out right now for Big Gabe. So that says to me that he's going to go for a bit of an earlier timing push here. Getting that Stim and Combat Shields earlier makes it look like he wants to be a bit more aggressive, and there's no 3rd base on the way right now for him at all. The Scouting Phoenix barely going to see the tail end of this army that is going to loop around, and we'll see him coming here. Raven setting up for some auto turret harass here, but HeRoMaRinE looking to put some real pressure on ShoWTimE's 3rd base. CG, is ShoWTimE going to be able to defend against this?
It's going to be a little bit tough. HeRoMaRiNE's usually favoring like 3cc builds, but back down just the regular 2 base push might have surprised ShoWTimE a little bit. He at least gets the scout. He's at least in position. Does he have the appropriate number of units? I think he does. When charge finishes up, which it will, I think he will be okay. And he's also dealing with the harassment, I think, fine enough, because I do believe he actually should have won this engagement. Okay, a little more complicated. Widow Mine's actually scaring ShoWTimE Zealots off of that tank. So HeRoMaRiNE's able to reinforce with a few more units. This Immortal Shield also got popped. Shield battery's actually been drained, and ShoWTimE, I thought he was going to clean that up. Now has to reevaluate.
That Nexus barely has enough energy for shield battery overcharge here, just at the last second, filling up with that 50 energy. So really surprising play there from HeRoMaRinE. I'm amazed he got that much damage done, and honestly, I'm amazed, CG, that he's sticking around here. He knows that ShoWTimE has plenty to defend against this, and I guess he's just counting on some impeccable micro and some really nice HeRoMaRinE baits to try and get additional damage done here. I feel like he's overstaying his welcome a bit, though. He's got to get out of there, right?
He's overstaying his welcome because he wanted to set up the double drop in the main base, and it might have actually done his job. Only a couple stalkers left over from the Raven defense earlier, so probes have to be pulled. Army has to be repositioned. Maybe a pylon goes down. Actually, not even that. Not the best drop, but also leaving there. He did get that pylon finally, so at least it was something. Yeah. But he also evacuates, so that's the most important thing.
Nailing down that. If only there was a name for a pylon, a single pylon that supported multiple structures in one base. We'll figure something out for that later, I'm sure. Third base, though, has finished up behind this for HeRoMaRinE, which is really nice. So that pressure didn't look very effective when it was happening, but honestly, yeah, it's all right, man. He's got a third base now. He got the pressure in the main finished up, and he's continuing with this Raven auto harass too, which is just super annoying to deal with. So as loath as I am to admit it, I think HeRoMaRinE made the right choice there, sticking around at the third base. I think you're absolutely right, CG.
It could have backfired, but it ultimately did not. Trying to engage on ShoWTimE, not being prepared. Actually might still kind of work. I thought the force was going to be good enough, and so did ShoWTimE. But having to retreat away from just a handful of Marines, they try to target down some of these really important sentries that made it a little bit awkward. ShoWTimE, if he hadn't lost all the probes he did to the Raven harassment, it's probably already working maybe even up to a fourth base while supplementing his army, but needs to stick around a little bit longer on just army production because he needs that storm first and foremost. 12 seconds to go and still not quite prepared. HeRoMaRinE gets an excellent shot on those zealots. They once again are dragged into the choke. The force fields actually keep the army away, which may not have been the most ideal thing for the storms, but yeah, it was a tough call there. ShoWTimE's beginning of that fight was just so awkward.
It was with no storm. You know, he doesn't want to turn those into Archons because he wants the storms for when it finally finishes up. He will be able to drive HeRoMaRinE back just a little bit, but look at the army supply graph right now. It's just so efficient for HeRoMaRinE. Sure, he loses a little bit, but he's able to push right in here. Shield battery overcharge might be able to save ShoWTimE's third base, but behind this, HeRoMaRinE adding on so much army. Ghost Academy on the way. We finally see the armory coming down to that +2, and he's keeping the pressure on here, CG. He is not going anywhere.
I love the micro from ShoWTimE to save that High Templar, but unfortunately the Archon still goes down. He still has not cleared up the Widow Mines, and he doesn't really have any more storms. I mean, those two High Templar are out of juice. You're going to have to wait quite a while longer. The 3 Immortals is giving me a little bit of hope for ShoWTimE's eventual engagement because there are so many Marauders here, but he really needs 1 or 2 storms to help out those Immortals, and maybe those are the 2 storms he was looking for. Pretty good, but can he actually tear this army down?
That was this, to borrow a word from your vernacular, CG, juicy storms. Those were gorgeous. Exactly what you wanted there. Softening up those Marauders, allowing the Immortals to get some big shots off. We now see ShoWTimE coming back slowly but surely into the army supply graph. We can see that actually ShoWTimE's army is now more valuable than HeRoMaRiNE's army overall. So able to hold on there, able to save most of his big bulky units. In fact, I think he only lost 2 Marauders this entire game so far. So really well done by ShoWTimE there. A surprising hold. I definitely thought Gabe was going to break it.
Yeah, it looked promising, but the Storm plus Immortals do have a lot of bite. You know, it's usually you're talking more about those big units like a Colossus or a Disruptor, of course, but don't discount the Immortals, especially when it is pretty much just Marauders and they don't even misfire. But it's still going to be tough for ShoWTimE. He's entirely on the defensive. He has to use the Warp Prism to be defensive as well. He knows EMPs are going to be on the way eventually. So, I mean, it'd be lovely to get a couple of Zealots over on the other side of the map. That's not really going to work, and he'd have to afford more than just 2 or 4 Zealots. The bunkers being made. HeRoMaRinE is covering his bases. This is the ideal situation. I kind of described it at the end of the last game. HeRoMaRinE just focusing entirely on the push.
Yeah, he is getting a 4th base behind this, but as you said, focusing everything right now on that push, keeping his energy and attention on this aggression. It's so difficult to push into the 4th base on Death Aura LE. You've got a couple bad choices. You can go up this ramp on the north side where your opponent has probably already got a shield battery in place, or you can go up the tinier ramp on the other side. And right now, these storms are just going to drive HeRoMaRinE back over and over again. Luckily, a good Widow Mine shot will soften up a bit of ShoWTimE's army here, and HeRoMaRiNE's reinforcements might be able to make this a game ender. Oh man, it's just going to be so close, CG.
Yeah, the Observer's trying to come back, but actually comes back into the scan. He needs to clean up these Widow Mines, and he cannot do it. He also can't really afford to spend time making new Observers, as he's trying to get just desperate Disruptors out. A couple of good Storms once again, but they kind of stacked. HeRoMaRinE runs away. It loses a couple of Medivacs, so that count's actually a lot lower than it used to be, but the Widow Mines, man, they've never been cleaned up. Ah, GG.
What a push from Big Gabe there. The advanced shockwaves really showing its value at the end of that game, CG. Not a shield in sight for any of our Protoss players. And that is going to draw us again to a game 3 where we're tied up at 1-1, which means, guys, we need to take a very short break. Zombie Grub and I'll be back after about 3 minutes. Come on back for more action here in the DreamHack Fall Masters 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, Protoss, Terran, and Zerg alike, welcome back to DreamHack Masters Fall 2020. I'm Creighton. With me is Zombie Grub. Zombie Grub, we're going into another game 3 here, tied up at 1-1. Could you ask for anything more?
It's what we expected, man, and both games were pretty good, showcasing of both their talents. I mean, it wasn't like one person killed 15 SCVs or 16 probes, and then, okay, well, it's just kind of over. It's always a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit of a comeback over there, and ultimately in one another's, victory. So let's see who can actually win Game 3 on EverDream. In the top right, as the red Protoss, he is ShoWTimE.
And his opponent and fellow countryman representing Germany in mouse sports. Give it up for HeRoMaRinE.
HeRoMaRiNE's last game, I think, were the most brutal part of it, and like overall, actually. Not the HeRoMaRiNE drop, but just the HeRoMaRiNE's with a tank push kind of stopped ShoWTimE from being able to clear it up entirely. Also made it 1-8 for his +1 armor, but yeah, that happened. Could have been an easier cleanup, and then the right side goes a lot easier. And then, well, the HeRoMaRiNE's towards the last pushes were just too brutal, because otherwise I thought he was getting close to clearing it up. So many HeRoMaRiNE's were left over. And HeRoMaRiNE is once again going to be starting off with a 1-base build. And this time really hiding the barracks.
I don't even know. This is like in that weird butter zone where it's not, it doesn't feel like a proxy barracks, because I feel like after he makes a couple units, he'll float it back into his main base maybe, but it also doesn't really feel like a Maca-Rax either, because it's not in the natural close. It's in that weird gray zone between the two sort of builds. So that will throw ShoWTimE off just a little bit, of course, gets the probe in and scouts around. Won't see anything. We'll see if he gets lucky and gets a good probe scouting pattern to see that Reaper coming out first for HeRoMaRiNE.
HeRoMaRiNE's trying to hide the SCV's path of return, because he knows the probe's about to see it. It's pretty cool. So he's going to see an SCV come back, but I mean, maybe that tells you that the proxy barracks wasn't near your side of the map. It doesn't tell you much more than that. So I think a bit more importantly, seeing the factory back at home, which is the safe call usually, but there's always that chance of going for an entire 1-1-1. Probably not something a HeRoMaRiNE would do, but yeah, sure, it does exist. And now the Reaper is going to show that it really was close to home.
Yeah. You know, it's something that we don't talk about, I think, a lot on these streams when we're casting CG, just because there's so much data to convey to everybody watching. But the amount of inference and deduction that these players have to do based on very limited information is unbelievable. ShoWTimE seeing that SCV coming back at exactly whatever second he saw it coming back at, he has to know and understand in the matchup where the 13 most likely proxy locations are, what the timing is going to be like when it comes back, and then what that means as far as the build and count number of SCVs in the main base. And like, I feel like we don't always get a chance to just remind people how incredible these players are at making decisions with very limited information, and how even the smallest bit of misplay or the smallest bit of information can reveal something huge that you didn't want to tell your opponent about.
I'm thinking the probe either didn't see the SCV come back at the time that it did and build that supply depot, because it was kind of like far away from it, or it just really is too difficult to tell. The exact seconds, because you're right, like we get to see all the information and be like, well, obviously that Reaper wouldn't have come back that fast if it wasn't because the barracks was close, but in an actual game that can be a little more difficult to tell. And with Everdream kind of being a more contained map, its rush distance isn't actually that bad. People think it's smaller than it is on just the natural to natural, but as a whole, it's kind of contained. It feels more constrained. That's the word I was looking for. The Reaper could have been, X, Y, or Z. So ShoWTimE did actually spend some unnecessary minerals on a Zealot, where maybe that would have been better off as a shield battery, and now he also has to get the shield battery because he was worried about the Reaper coming in and getting even 2 or 3 probes. Actually, it didn't go in at all, and even budget up with the second Reaper for double the grenade power.
Unfortunately, even with double grenade power, which definitely sounds like some kid's game I played growing up, unfortunately, with double grenade power, HeRoMaRiNE still can't force his way into that natural. And ShoWTimE should be pretty safe back here, going for Blink. And now it's going to come down to very similar to what we saw in the previous game, which is, can HeRoMaRiNE get any damage done early with these drops? Will ShoWTimE defend? And then how can HeRoMaRiNE keep the pressure on? It's going for Raven early on back home. How do you feel about that, CG?
It was so effective in the last game. It really distracted ShoWTimE and started to collect those kills. Overall, I think it was the main contributor to the probe kills, so I don't mind that whatsoever. There is also a chance that ShoWTimE could show us a DT build if the game starts off a bit more normal, but it's always been HeRoMaRiNE starting things off aggressive. So ShoWTimE's really just been trying to do the most basic thing as a response in the cleanest way possible, which again is Blink into Robo. It's pretty clean, but again, not the cleanest. He lost 4 probes as well as a stalker to the front and still has not cleaned up the attacks.
I thought you were talking about HeRoMaRiNE for a minute. I was like, what are you talking about? It was kind of clean. He didn't lose a single unit. You're right, though. ShoWTimE cleaned up very well. HeRoMaRiNE, though, just very slick and making everything work just the way he wants to. No surprises here. HeRoMaRiNE dropping barracks number 2 and 3. Stim on the way. Should see, I imagine, combat shields soon, as that barracks will float over to get on the other tech lab, just as ShoWTimE's third goes down. This is a great scout from HeRoMaRiNE. Man, one thing I don't think we've given HeRoMaRiNE enough props for lately, ZG, is that he's been scouting so well in the previous games, both games 1 and 2, even in game 1 where he was held back a lot at home. I feel like he still did a pretty decent job of at least figuring out where ShoWTimE was going to be and what his timings kind of looked like. So he's been doing a nice job of keeping his eye on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's one thing that we sometimes forget to convey, but whenever you are the aggressor, you're also usually getting a lot of good scouting information. You scout by your attacks, by your harassment, and that's been happening, as well as just a good old Helly on top of that third Nexus. ShoWTimE also got some good scouting. Again, maybe a bit of a faster sentry, not the fastest, but still getting one for hallucination means that he saw that it wasn't a fast 3cc build, which HeRoMaRinE does do a decent bit of in like those open cup tournaments, for instance, but clearly has a different way of showing TVP at DreamHack, and specifically today as well. So nice scout on ShoWTimE side as well. If you had seen a third CC, might be like double forge or quicker robo bay or something like that. But he's actually been going for Templar Archive, so I shouldn't even say that. Which I expect to see again here, but first he's got to take care of this push. And this time, ideally, he gets everything set up, +1 and charge, and is able to kind of jump on top of it when he thinks he can. That would be the ideal.
This is going to be a really tricky timing for ShoWTimE. We're waiting on, I think Charge will finish up for sure. +1 armor may or may not complete by the time HeRoMaRinE hits, depending on how much HeRoMaRinE dawdles in the background. The real problem is going to be that ShoWTimE's 4 gates will finish up, but it'll only have time for about 1 round of warp-ins, which isn't quite enough to make those pay for themselves. And that means HeRoMaRiNE's going to be able to move in here unopposed almost completely. Will take down that pylon. The shield battery's still up, the backup pylon. The tank goes down, but gets 1 big shot off. Even though shield battery overcharge goes down, this third base in a lot of trouble, CG.
I mean, ShoWTimE's in a lot of trouble. This actually hits so perfectly timed before charge, before +1, and before the gateways were done to actually use the bank that ShoWTimE was accruing. He had 700 minerals and not enough zealots to actually take this down too easily. Maybe he holds, but this is a powerful blow. HeRoMaRinE, maybe a little bit too strong. Some good target fire from the Immortal there, actually taking down another Marauder, and the Raven is close to death, that can finally get off his mind, maybe eventually, but ShoWTimE just was not quite prepared, and he couldn't buy any time either. You know, sometimes those stalkers out on the map, they buy the extra 5 seconds. It's actually crucial. They couldn't do that in this game. There weren't enough of them, and they were busy deflecting everything.
Interesting choice from HeRoMaRinE, by the way, to focus fire down exclusively the army units of ShoWTimE in that past attack. Usually I want to see Terran players focusing down probes, right? Doing the longer lasting, more sustainable economic damage. But I think HeRoMaRinE feels like he can break ShoWTimE right here. He can smash upon those rocks and turn them into sand. And he's hoping that the wall, Daimauer, will in fact drop down based on just his army attacks alone. But that does mean, since HeRoMaRinE hasn't completely broken ShoWTimE, ShoWTimE is behind on income, but not as far as HeRoMaRinE may have hoped.
It's manageable, I guess. You're warping in enough units, but you can't really go anywhere else. And you can't add on a Templar Archives or a Disruptor. So still very desperate for ShoWTimE. With the lack of splash, I mean, it seems like it's inevitability. He's just going to lose this game. He needs something to help out because his numbers is not going to be greater than his opponent. So, I mean, yeah, maybe a couple good force fields. Immortals are getting the prime shots the Marauders like they would want, and he's doing a good job of keeping away from those Widow Mines, even finally tearing them down, unlike last game. I'm looking at those Zealots and wondering if maybe they can give ShoWTimE enough time to breathe, but it looks like he's going to wait. He's going to wait until actually HeRoMaRinE pushes into him again.
Yeah, HeRoMaRinE, I think, very wisely in disengaging right now, realizing that there is a very real possibility for ShoWTimE to come across the map and try and do some counter damage. That's one way that ShoWTimE really could come back into this, is if he can get some economic counter damage done on HeRoMaRinE in his third base here, maybe take out 10, 15 SCVs. That'll be a way that ShoWTimE can even the odds here, and HeRoMaRinE is way out of position, CG.
Yes, he is. This is actually a fantastic move from ShoWTimE. I think HeRoMaRinE does want to respond. No weird base races today. If he responds, HeRoMaRinE might just take down the entire army, but that's where the evacuation has to go to those force fields. Actually, HeRoMaRiNE's not going to take it at all. He's going to actually be so busy dealing with the Zealots in his natural and his main that he did not jump on top of the army. In fact, it's now ShoWTimE jumping on top of him. There's actually damage happening in every single location on this map, man.
ShoWTimE is being the best Terran player I've ever seen right now, ZombieGov, dropping in 2 locations at once while pressuring on the third. He's playing so well. That multi-pronged harass got exactly what he needed to get done. 15 SCVs going down. Now, a lot of Stalkers going to go down into this Liberator, and that's a bit of a mistake. The Liberator finally gets cleaned up here, but ShoWTimE is keeping this pressure on the third base. I don't know if the continued pressure is good, but HeRoMaRiNE's certainly scared, running for his life right now as his bunker is canceled out. He's not going to be able to defend this very well. Even pulling the boys, HeRoMaRiNE feels really desperate right now, CG.
Yeah, this is an amazing play from ShoWTimE. He's down by 20 army supply, but his forces are trying to actually make this work. The Immortals are trying to get those Marauder counts down, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. The Immortals down the front line are going to get taken out. No, saved by the Warp Prism, but the Warp Prism goes down after it warped in a couple more Zealots, but actually ShoWTimE, he leaves the game. Oh, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. He was about to lose his entire army, but he had actually finally taken that worker lead, and he'd finally cleared up all the harassment on the side of the map too, but he really thought that was an all-in, so if it didn't work, he didn't win the game, he's going to tap out. And,
oh, man, what an absolute nail. What a nail biter there, CG. Yeah, it's definitely the right call. I think he'd lost the game by that point. The army supply was wildly in HeRoMaRiNE's favor. And of course, HeRoMaRiNE still had all his infrastructure and everything. But man, that last fight, I could have seen that going either way. I think ShoWTimE microing very well there. The Warp Prism in a beautiful position behind the ramp so that HeRoMaRiNE had to move onto the ramp to try and focus fire down the Warp Prism, which brought him further into range for all the charge slots and forced him to get a better surround with those Zealots on his bio army. So a lot of really nicely done things there by ShoWTimE. But yeah, HeRoMaRiNE just able to defend a little too well. And that early game pressure paying off. We've said it once, we've said it 1,000 times, EG. StarCraft is a game that you win 5 minutes before the game's over or 10 minutes before the game's over. And I think we saw HeRoMaRiNE win that game and just kind of wait for ShoWTimE to bleed out.
He did win that game, I think, with the first push, but for ShoWTimE to counter back and actually use his army to take some decent engagements as well as buy time for the harassment to really do some damage, I thought that was fantastic play. And if he had evacuated up towards the ramp and actually through the ramp, I think his force fields are good enough either to evacuate and just like leave it be. I killed 15 SCVs, let's continue on, or to actually take a better fight in that last fight. If he had been able to cut off, you know, 10 units plus all the SCVs, he slaughters those and then continues on with the rest, that's when that supply difference is actually not questionable. But unfortunately, he couldn't quite get up the ramp, was, you know, just had to go over to the right side, which wasn't nearly as force fieldable.
Right.
Well, HeRoMaRiNE made the right choice to pull the SCVs before things got too out of control. So kudos to HeRoMaRiNE. It was a dicier situation than we expected. I'm sure HeRoMaRiNE was also a little bit surprised that he might have actually lost the army engagement. And now we move on to Ice and Chrome for what could be the final map.
CG, do you know what the German name for Ice and Chrome is?
Glass and something? I don't know.
You're close. It's Ice und Chrome, which is like my favorite. Yeah, it's just, they're both cognates apparently. I saw it, I think HeRoMaRiNE linked me to an Ice and Chrome match one time, and it was in German, of course, because he linked it to me. So it was Ice und Chrome, and I was like, oh man, my German is so good, you guys.
Yeah, I thought it would be like more like French. Because like Denver always links it in French.
Oh yeah,
like,
glace.
You know, ice is glass, yeah.
Glace et something, I don't know. Anyway, spawning in the top right-hand side in the blue, the largest of Gabriels himself, representing Mouse Sports. Give it up, kids, for HeRoMaRiNE.
In the bottom left, there's the red Protoss. He is ShoWTimE.
So interesting that we've got this match here, HeRoMaRiNE and ShoWTimE, Germany versus Germany. Our next match is going to be, well, our next match tomorrow is going to be Marine Lord, the Frenchman, versus either Clem or Petit Drogo, 2 Frenchmen. We've got not 1, not 2, but 3 matches in the next 2 days, ZG, where players from the same European countries are going to be knocking out their fellow countrymen. That speaks really highly of the amount of StarCraft talent in both France and Germany right now.
Yeah, it's kind of been a thing for the entirety of StarCraft, but at different levels, I suppose. You had Stefano really leading the charge for the French team, and then Marine Lord had his time as well. Now I guess he's having his time again. And then I guess Germany's actually been represented by these guys for a very long time. But,
forever, right?
Yeah, yeah, and then Lambo coming up as well for Germany. I mean, yeah, maybe they weren't always the best Nation Wars team, for instance, but they're always contenders. And then with, I guess Poland got like a little bit weaker over the years. I think Poland was actually one of the strongest in like Brood War 2.
Oh, yeah.
For the foreign community, but it's neither here nor there. Not casting Brood War, are we?
Thank goodness. Did you see that pylon recall out of the main, or that probe recall out of the main for ShoWTimE?
Yeah.
Recalled his one probe back home. That's such a cute move.
Mathematically, the superior move.
Is it really? Tell me more about that.
I couldn't believe it. When this first started to happen, I think it was like even a big broadcast, or like me and someone else was like, that's not worth it, right? And then it happened a couple more times, and finally someone on Reddit was like, well, I did the math. And apparently recalling the probe is actually more economic than the corner boost you get from it.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll be damned. That is so cool. Well, good move
Right?
by ShoWTimE. Very cute all the same. And a bit of a change up this time from HeRoMaRinE, not going for a one base opener again. Looks like he went for factory, I guess, again first. But wait, is this the same build he's done the last game, CG?
Yes, I believe it is.
Yeah, it is.
Two
Okay,
Reapers,
never mind.
the Hellion, maybe the drop again as well. We'll see what comes out of the actual starport, though. That could be the change-up. That could be the difference.
Ugh.
ShoWTimE is really determined not to take any damage. You know, he's really been trying to kind of cut as many corners as possible. Last game, he did go for a Zealot and a Shield Battery, but Zealot wasn't really the right call. This game, he goes for 2 Shield Batteries, which I think is the better call, as some of the lacking defense for ShoWTimE has been just a little bit on one or another base, right? Like he defends one base pretty well, but then a Raven comes in and starts killing probes. And if you have a Shield Battery in both, then hopefully the tiny Marine drop or the Reaper in it or the Raven harassment doesn't actually pierce through those Shield Batteries.
Yeah, definitely a good call, especially as we see that HeRoMaRiNE's Cloaked Banshee coming across now. Shield Batteries, of course, going to allow those Protoss mineral lines to last for a lot longer when they're getting fired on by those terrifying twin cannons from the Banshee. So big investment from HeRoMaRinE, obviously, to go for Banshee and Cloak. I expect we'll see probably a second Banshee behind this. It'd be a surprising deal for Cloak and only one Banshee. But HeRoMaRiNE still adding on a tank, still adding on Marines. And, you know, I like Blink here, Zombie Grub. I like Blink. Gives a little bit more mobility to ShoWTimE.
ShoWTimE might have gotten 2 Shield Batteries, but he is cutting a corner elsewhere. I mean, he's only going for 2 gateways, which makes a lot of sense. But I'm just saying, like, if you're really afraid of a follow-up push, then you might see 3 gateways. If you wanted to be aggressive, you might go for 4. But ShoWTimE is known for his defensive, economic properties. So just 2 gateways, and the faster third nexus you can get off of that. So I think that is the right call. Because again, theoretically, HeRoMaRinE doesn't really have a lot of killing power with just the Banshees. So you can theoretically perfectly defend against them. However, a follow-up tank push is what I think ShoWTimE could be afraid of. Because the Stalkers are going to be so busy dealing with the Banshees, they could lose track of tank pushes, and excellent positioning on the Marines from HeRoMaRinE. That was perfect.
And this is so annoying to deal with, right? Because now oh my gosh, now the Scouting Phoenix doesn't see the timing of the move out for HeRoMaRinE, doesn't confirm what's the main base either. And even though HeRoMaRiNE's going to get pushed away here, 1 pylon's gone down, a 2nd pylon going to drop as well. That's actually going to supply block ShoWTimE for a little bit there. Okay, thank goodness his pylon finishes just in time. So he's not supply blocked anymore, but there's a big push from HeRoMaRinE coming now. 33 army supply to 16, and I think you're absolutely right, CG. This tank push is nothing to be scoffed at.
Oh, this might be too much. ShoWTimE just didn't see it coming, man. Like, he maybe could have had a few more units on that high ground to kind of stall it out, but now he's about to even lose another unit. Oh, do you lose another Stalker? Oh my gosh, this is already going off really bad. A Shield Battery overcharge is going to try and save the day, and maybe ShoWTimE get a bit of a surround on top of these tanks. He's got to pull the probes immediately, but into a bunch of Marines still left over. I don't know if this is going to be enough. This is so much damage that ShoWTimE is taking, but if he can clean it up, then maybe he can bring back this game. But that tank ain't going down that fast. There's some probes around, man. It doesn't go down at all, actually, because the SCV's repairing it. Finally, it goes down, but 2 more Banshees, all the Marines. GG.